Okay, so after my review of Portal 1, my original plan was to make a review for Portal 2 right away. But then shit started happening. I started hyping up for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2, a new Mockingjay trailer came out, so I just put it aside. But now it's mid-October, there's not too much going on, and really I'm just waiting for the new Hobbit trailer. So let's talk about one of the most quotable games of all time. Portal 2. Now before you guess, yes, I will be talking about this game with spoilers. There are a few reasons I talk about things with spoilers. If a movie or game has been out and around for a while, I'm gonna use spoilers if it's popular enough. If it's a TV episode that just aired, I usually upload my review the following day or later. So you've either watched the episode by the time I upload the video, or you just don't care. As for this game, Portal 2, which came out in 2011, there is no other way to talk about this game than to just full-on spoil it. If you for some reason have not played this game yet that no one doesn't like, seriously, you don't even need to have played the first one. Just go out and buy it and play it and love it. So at the end of Portal 1, you, Chell, defeated GLaDOS down in Aperture Labs because she was actually a psychotic AI hellbent on murdering you, and the explosion knocked you unconscious. So you wake up God knows how much later in this hotel room looking place. You're not sure what's going on, you're really confused. That's when you meet Wheatley. Wheatley is a personality core, one of the many built in Aperture, and he is one of the key characters in this game, out of all like 5 of them, but he's still pretty important. This introductory scene to the game is just huge, because Wheatley is driving this mobile hotel room through this giant Aperture Labs. The scope of it is enormous. Everything in the room is just shaking around, the music's kicking on, it's big. So you end up at one of the old testing tracks. You look around and you notice that these chambers are exactly like the ones that the first game started out with. Of course, there is one huge difference. Aperture Science Laboratories is just run down. The place looks like complete and utter shit, and I think that's awesome personally. Because you think about it and you're like, okay, no one's here to run this place anymore. Didn't GLaDOS used to run this place? She did, but I killed her. Holy shit, I ruined this place. It almost makes you feel guilty. So you pick up your portal gun and you start getting back into the swing of things, all the while Wheatley's hanging around and catching you up to speed. And eventually you get to the GLaDOS wake-up scene. Yeah, you accidentally wake her up again. This is seriously one of my favorite scenes in the game, if not my absolute favorite. The music, the atmosphere, the emotions running in your head as you're looking up at this big, scary AI. The way this scene was put together was awesome. I'm just gonna say it like this. GLaDOS in Portal 2 is straight up my favorite fictional AI of all time. Not just because of the way she looks. Coolest looking AI ever. You know me by now, I like things that look cool, but if that is all it does for me and it's actually bad, I won't like forgive it just because it looks cool, like the Transformers movies. GLaDOS in this game looks cool, and she has some of the funniest dialogue I have ever heard in a game. This is where the game starts getting quotable. So now you're in these test chambers just like in the first game, but whenever you finish one, GLaDOS will like badmouth you or taunt you. Here come the test results. You are a horrible person. That's what it says. A horrible person. We weren't even testing for that. You know, because you murdered her in the last game. So I guess this is her way of getting back at you. There are also a few mechanics in the puzzles in this game that were not in the first one. There are these things called aerial faith plates. You step on one and it sends you flying through the air. There's also lasers and cubes you can use to redirect them. I understand why they're there. They're to add new flavor to the game, but you can't help but wonder, where were these in Portal 1? But that energy pellet is gone. Yay. I hated that thing in the first game. So it seems like you're stuck doing these test chambers for some time. But don't worry, because Wheatley comes back to rescue you. Now you're escaping from GLaDOS and the test chambers. This is a fun scene because you're running, the music's really cool. At this point, I'm gonna talk about the music because it is straight up one of the best video game soundtracks ever made. Not just the credits song Want You Gone, which is great, but also the score. When something really big is going down in this game, this electronic soundtrack will find the perfect sound to go along with that scene. Example, in this scene when you're escaping with Wheatley, the music's all like it's fast, it's frantic, it's yeah, let's get the fuck out of here. And now you get to see a little behind the scenes action at Aperture Labs. You got to see a little bit of it in the first one, but never to this extent. You get to see turrets being made and you see them being tested out to see if they're defective or not. This is a funny part, but I love that even though we're not in the test chambers anymore, it still feels like a puzzle game. You still have to figure out what to do. So what you're doing is you're replacing the working turrets with defective ones, and you're shutting down the neurotoxin generator. The neurotoxin generator scene is another one of my favorite scenes in the game because again, you're looking up at this giant thing, and when you figure out how to shut it down and you see it just collapse, it's the coolest thing ever. And from there, you go right to GLaDOS to confront her. Here comes another great scene. So you're there in GLaDOS' main chamber, and she is ready to kill you once and for all. She tries to plant turrets on you, but it doesn't work because they're defective. She tries to turn on the neurotoxin, but nothing happens. But then Wheatley shows up, and we have ourselves a core transfer. This is the turning point in the game. Wheatley gets to take over GLaDOS' body, and by extension, he gets to run all of Aperture Labs. He stuffs GLaDOS into a little potato. And at first, he's gonna get you right out of there, back into the free world. It looks like you're home free, but then GLaDOS intervenes and she reveals the truth. And the truth is, Wheatley was originally an intelligence deafening core that the scientists attached to GLaDOS when they first created her to try to get her to stop doing evil things like killing everybody with neurotoxin. Wheatley was designed to be stupid and make bad decisions. Of course, Wheatley won't have that from GLaDOS.
I am not a
Moron! And he plunges you and GLaDOS down into the deepest, darkest depths of Aperture Science. I've already stated a couple of my favorite parts of the game, but this is my favorite chapter of the game. This is where the story gets really, really interesting. You are now in the lowest levels of Aperture Labs, and it looks like a huge, dark, abandoned wasteland. Now you're going through all these old test chambers involving gels like blue repulsion gel and orange propulsion gel. I just now noticed blue and orange gels, blue and orange portals. And everything here looks like it was built in the 1950s. You really get a sense of the history of Aperture Science and how it kind of gradually went downhill. A lot of credit for this goes to J.K. Simmons as the voice of Cave Johnson. Cave Johnson was the original founder and CEO of Aperture Science back in the day. And when you're going through all these old test chambers, you can actually hear his pre-recorded messages from the 50s. Here come even more quotes.
When life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Make life take the lemons back. Get mad. I don't want your damn lemons. What the hell am I supposed to do with these?
This guy's a lot of fun to listen to. So now you're going through all these old test chambers and you're listening to Cave Johnson's original messages, but you also start hearing someone else with him. This is awesome. His personal assistant, Carolyn. One of the coolest parts is when GLaDOS hears Cave's voice for the first time. You hear him ask Carolyn something, and when she replies, "Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson," you hear GLaDOS go,
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson.
then she goes nuts, like,
Why the hell did I just do that?
You're like, whoa, does GLaDOS have something to do with Carolyn? Oh yeah, she has everything to do with Carolyn. And that's just one small part of the big history of Aperture Science you learn down here. So after you've grown tired of doing all these old test chambers, eventually you work your way back up to the higher levels of Aperture Labs again, to find that Wheatley has completely wrecked the place. To the point where he's trying to fuse turrets with cubes. That ain't right. It turns out that GLaDOS' software has a built-in euphoric response to testing, so he is now pretty much forcing you to do all of his test chambers. And at first, these tests are like stupid. Yeah, just hit the switch that drops a cube right onto the button that opens the door, thanks. But as these tests progress, they turn into the most difficult ones in the game. That is awesome. And eventually you get to Wheatley's chamber and you got yourself a boss fight. Well, well, well. Welcome to my lair. You need to attach these corrupt personality cores to Wheatley, and eventually they'll make him corrupt enough for another core transfer. The first few times you play this boss fight, it is fun as hell because you have no idea how you're supposed to do this. You gotta use the different gels, the bombs. This fight takes everything you've learned in this game and applies it to what you have to do to defeat him. That's called smart game making, but after you've beaten him a few times, it actually gets old. You're like, okay, let's get this done so we can get to that oh so epic ending. The ending to this game is beyond epic. You got one portal right under Wheatley and the ceiling breaks and you see the full moon right up there. And you remember Cave Johnson saying that portal surfaces were originally made from moon dust, so what do? You shoot a portal all the way up to the moon. Everything gets sucked into the portal under Wheatley, including Wheatley himself. GLaDOS performs the core transfer, she is reattached to her own body, Wheatley's abandoned out in space, and all is right in the world. So with peace restored to Aperture Labs, you come to an understanding with GLaDOS. All that time she was trying to kill you and you're still standing, the best solution to a problem is usually the easiest one, so in the end she just lets you go. You finally get to leave Aperture Science Laboratories. So you're rising in that elevator, that song Cara Mia Addio starts playing, and you see all these turrets singing. It's not only epic, but you're like, it's beautiful! And so, in the end, you are finally let free and the story comes to a close. And so shall my review. In conclusion, Portal 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, in case you haven't figured that out already. It's great for absolutely everybody, and it proves that you can have a super fun time in a game without killing anyone. So chew on that! I'm getting rid of grades for movies and games I review because I don't like them. Just take my word that Portal 2 is an absolute must-play game. Play it at least once before you die. And for those of you interested in Portal lore, there's actually a comic that Valve made called Lab Rat. I actually think it's part of the bonus content in the game. It serves as kind of a bridge between the two Portal games, and it actually answers some of the questions that you might still have about the story. So go check that out, read it, and it'll actually blow your mind. Blew mine anyways, it was awesome. So what is your favorite scene in either of the Portal games? Go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.